While we're waiting for ones to get on and get their cameras on, um, what did you think about the contacts in the phone yesterday, Emily? Did you know it was that easy?
It actually wasn't that easy for me.
Uh-oh.
Way back when I first joined, I could not get my phone and command to like each other. I even tried Scott Leroy and they couldn't get it to do it easily either. So I ended up having to do it old school. However, something I did right because when I put a new contact into command, it goes into my phone.
Interesting.
So it goes that way. It doesn't go the other way. If I put a contact into my phone, it does not go into
What kind
command.
of phone do you have?
A droid.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
And my husband weighs in. Yes.
what do you expect?
I actually hate iPhones, so I'm not going to change. But anyway. No.
But life is so much easier. Anybody else here have an Android?
Nope. Not a one.
Yay.
I'm in a meeting.
Okay. So I'm going to show you guys something today because we're going to talk about the importance of your database and how it's going to help you in your business. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that will make your job with finding your missing information and all that so much easier. Because I think there's been a couple of updates because I was not aware of a couple things. Now, I'll be full disclosure, I'm not the command guru, and since I have somebody do all that for me, I don't have to stay as up to date as fast, right? So, does everybody that's here, do you know that they updated command to very easily pull your contacts in from your phone? Like without a CSV file and without Scott Leroy. Does everybody know how to do that? I'm getting one yes. Okay. Since it only takes a minute, I am going to show you because this is amazing. So those that have cameras off, if you're able to turn them on, I would very much appreciate it, even if you're eating. Several are eating on here. Does everybody have command on their phone? Hey, Krista. Okay, so take out your phone and go into your command. And I'm going to walk you through how easy this is. Thank you, Cindy. Does everybody have command open? Okay. Click on your contacts at the bottom. Now, once you do that, see the three little dots at the upper right-hand corner? Click on that. And then click Import Contacts. And then click Continue. Now, here is where, there we go. Here is where you can choose Select All. But I'm sure a lot of people are going, I don't want all these people in my command. You may have some of those, reply all and Amazonic things and all that stuff in here, right? But you can go through and pick which ones that you want to put in just by tapping on them. And then when you're done, click go or whatever it says at the bottom when you're done. I have 1,500 to scroll through to tell you the exact word. It will take a few minutes. And while it's working, don't turn your phone off or leave the app. Okay. So you don't have to do it right this minute, but I wanted you to know how easy that is because we used to have somebody else do it for us or have another piece of software help us or have a CSV file. And then if it didn't match up, we got frustrated and you remember that. So game changer, huh? So I'm going to challenge you guys. Who here thinks they have everybody they know in command? I'm going to challenge you guys this week to find 50 people, yes, 50 from your phone that are not in command and put them in there. Because what does the data prove? The data proves that if you have over 200 contacts that you regularly stay in touch with, you will have business from your database. Okay. So I want you to put 50 people from your phone that are not yet in command. Don't overthink it. Don't say, oh, but I don't know if I should call them. Don't overthink it. 50 people that you know who they are and they know who you are. Put them in command. Okay. Then I'm going to show you another step, because this was, now let's see if I can actually remember how to do it. That's the key here. So I'm going to go into my command. So how many of you feel that you have contacts that you know you have missing information from? Anybody? Missing phone numbers, emails, few things? Okay. And how many of you have been going through one by one or on your quarterly calls and you try to find that information? You want a real easy way to be able to do that? Here we go. So let's see if I can remember how we do this. We go into our contacts. Then you go into your filters. Okay. You can filter several different ways. Now, lead source here, once you import from your phone, you'll be able to type in phone and then it'll pull up phone import. And then you can filter for all those 50 that you're going to add. You can filter specifically for those. And if you apply, I won't have any because I didn't do it yet, but it would give you just those ones you imported from your phone. Okay. So I'm going to turn that filter off and I'm going to apply a different one here. It's clear. Let's just do Facebook, just so I can show you something. Oh, what do you mean it didn't return any? I have several. Oh, let's see. Let's do it this way. Any. Notice here, search by neighborhood, no neighborhood. Do some of you have neighborhood nurtures on somebody that's not getting the email because you don't have a neighborhood attached? So if you filter by no neighborhood and apply, it's going to tell you how many people you have that don't have a neighborhood associated to them. And so then what you can do is you can create a smart view. So if you come to smart view and then you could title it no neighborhood and save. Now you've just created a smart view that every time you go into your database or every time you do your lead generation, plan to do 10 people that you're going to reach out to because you don't have their address. So you can call them, text them, email them, let them know you have something you want to send them. You can search now because you've created this every time instead of having to go back in and do that. You can do the same thing if you're missing a phone number, if you're missing an email address. Although, you know what, let me put the screen back up because there was an extra step, if I recall correctly, for the email address. So we go into advanced and notice it says where neighborhoods is empty. And so we can put in here primary phone number, right? Is empty. So that means there's no phone number attached to that contact, right? Or you could change this if you just want it to be the phone number. You can take this off. You can change this to where it's just contacts that don't have a phone number. Is empty. And click apply. And then you're going to get all the contacts that you have that don't have a phone number. So again, go in and create your smart view. So then you have the one, whoops, what did I do? I clicked something wrong. But you can go in and create your smart view so that the next time you can pull up just the ones that don't have a phone number. Okay. Is that helpful? I didn't know it was that easy to search for things like that. I knew because they used to have ways to do that and it didn't work well. And now it's working really well and they've made it very simple. So hopefully that'll be helpful to all of you to be able to add more contacts to your database and then not have to, okay, who just got added? You can easily go in and find them. And what should your contacts at a bare minimum have attached to them? Every one of them.
Phone number, address, and email.
Okay, that's the information that you should
Yeah.
have at a bare minimum, definitely. So if that should be your focus, if you are missing any information, make that your focus this week to get that missing information. We're coming up in the next couple of months to a time of year where that's going to be super important and we have conversations to help you. Okay, so get that missing information. However, every contact should have 2 smart plans at a minimum attached to them. Which 2?
Quarterly call and neighborhood nurture.
There you go. Quarterly call and bi-monthly neighborhood nurture, because that's 26 touches, right? Plus the quarterly, that's 30 right there. No brainer. Okay. So make that part of what you're doing this week, working on that, because the more contacts you have that are being connected with on a regular basis, the more business you will have.
Sorry, Jody, was quarterly, and which one was the second one?
The bi-monthly neighborhood nurture.
Yeah.
And those are in the library for the smart plans. They're created by Keller Williams. And those 2 don't need any editing on your part. You can just click and add.
Unfortunately, the bi-monthly is called bi-weekly. They misnamed it.
Did they change the name?
It's been, unless they've changed it to correct, it's wrong. Every
Okay.
time I've looked for it, it says bi-weekly. And my first thought was, I'm not sending somebody something twice a week, but they really mean bi-monthly.
Okay, well, good information to have. Thank you for that. Okay. So make sure that you're doing that, and you can bulk add those smart plans. Does everyone know how to do that? That's super easy to bulk add them so that you don't have to do it one by one. So take your entire database and add those 2 smart plans. And you don't have to worry about who's on it, who's not on it, because if they're already on it, it won't add it a second time. Okay.
I have a question about these smart plans really quick. If the majority of my potential clients speak a different language, I can edit it, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
okay, good.
Yeah. Once you add a smart plan, you can go in and edit the little pencil on the far right to the smart plan. That's where you can edit anything you need to.
Wonderful.
Yes. Good question, though. All right. So before we go any further, how did you guys do with your challenge from last week? Let's hear some wins, some struggles, and let's help you get past those struggles. So who had some wins? Let's start there. And remember, a win can be something small. It doesn't have to be I opened an escrow or I took a listing. It could be I called those 10 people I was afraid to, right? It could be something that was difficult for you to do that you pushed through and did. So who has a win?
Well, I did. I contact 100. Was 200 because I'm in bowl, and they put us a challenge, and to do 100 a day or 100 a week, and well, I pitch in on that, and I did 200, and from that I get 5 contacts.
Very good. Congratulations. So you not only did the 20 a day that Bold expects you to do, you did a Bold 100 also, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Now, congratulations to you, Ava, because most people that do a Bold 100 just use those 100 for their Bold contacts for the week. So you went above and beyond, and that's what it takes to make it in this business. Not that you're going to do 200 contacts necessarily every single time, right? But that's the kind of thinking.
Yes.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And 5 leads from that.
I get 5 contacts.
Yeah, very good.
I did my 100 doors and I have 1 solid prospect from it.
Very good. Congratulations. So what is it that our broker Troy likes to say? The numbers are 100 conversations equals 4 appointments, which equals 2 contracts, which equals 1 closing. So think about how many conversations are you having every week? Are you having 100 conversations a week? Are you having 100 conversations a month? If you're not, and business isn't happening, what can you change? Because essentially, 100 conversations equals a transaction. Now, does that mean the first 100 you do is going to equal a transaction? Not necessarily, but the averages are for every 100 people you talk to, you should end up with a transaction. But remember, the key is that you talk to, not that you attempted to talk to. So think about your own business, and you can think about this internally. I'm not asking anybody to tell on themselves, but really purposefully think about how many conversations are you having every single week? Is that enough conversations for you to reach your goals? Or do you need to figure out how to have more conversations? So tell me this much. Raise your hand if you need to have more conversations. Okay. So now I want you to think about what is it that you're going to do to have more conversations. It means you got to get in front of more people somehow, right? So think about what's one thing that you can do differently or more of that will help you have more conversations. And I want you to write that down. You don't have to put it in the chat. I want you to write it down. And I want you to focus on that this week. Did everybody figure out something?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. So any other wins that you'd like to share?
Oh, I do. Well, I had some conversations and everything, and out of these conversations, I got a handful of people, I would say 4, who now it now became a struggle. I'm trying to get them to speak with the mortgage lender, but to them it feels kind of like homework to get all the documents and everything to get pre-approved. So maybe later on I will ask the question, how could I get them and show them the importance of getting pre-approved? Because
Okay.
they ask me, well, we don't know what they can afford or what their purchasing power is if they don't get pre-approved.
Okay.
Yes. So that's my small victory, my win. It's I've already jumped that hurdle. I have a handful of people who are ready and willing, but but just need to get them pre-approved. And I already introduced them to a mortgage lender that speaks Spanish. So
Okay. So we just don't know if they're able yet. Okay.
Yes.
So when we get to our mastermind portion and our struggle, we will address. I wrote that down so we won't forget that.
Okay, excellent.
Any other wins that you'd like to share before we move on?
I had a slight win, I would say. I had a client that I was following up with for a while, and he's a Spanish speaker. And he said that 2 weeks ago, he said he wasn't ready and that he has some things to take care of, personal issues. But on Friday, he texted me saying that he found a property he really liked and he wanted to get the ball rolling. So I put him in contact with the mortgage lender, and we're finally getting the ball rolling.
Congratulations. That's a big win.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great job. Okay. So we know what Manuel wants to talk about with that. We'll address that. Is there any other specific struggle anyone's having? Because I know that all of you on here are working to increase your business, increase your activity. We've been doing this a few weeks now. What struggles are you having that we can help you with?
I'm not sure if this is a struggle, but when I do open houses, I would like to increase the number of people that attend. I don't know if that's a struggle, but sometimes it's only like one or two. And I was like, should there be more? Like, could I do like something different to, well, I actually know what I could do different to increase that number, but I feel like I just need to get more people going into the open houses.
Okay. We can talk about that. We're going to put that toward the end because that is something that we've talked about several times. So I want to make sure that we have room for everything, but we will address that. Okay. Anyone else struggling with getting visitors to their open houses? Okay. Okay. Well, while you guys are thinking, let's dive into the importance of pre-approval and helping our clients understand that. Okay. So it's a lot of work to get documents together and get everything that the lenders need. And we understand that. So first of all, we would want to start by recognizing that we understand that, right? We live in a busy world. But here's the thing, once they get all those documents together, that's the hardest part, right? Then it should be, for the most part, smooth sailing from there. But Manuel, you might say, I'm just going to pretend you're the buyer, okay? Okay, so Manuel, I understand it's a lot of work to get those documents together, and you might have them in 5 different places in the house and have to look for a while. But here's the thing. If we take care of this now, then as we look at property and we find that perfect house that is just the right house, we're ready to write an offer so that, and with a pre-approval letter, so that we have the best chance to get your offer accepted. If we wait until you find the perfect house, we may run out of time, and your offer is likely not to get accepted if we don't have a pre-approval letter to be able to send along with your offer. So, so really take them down the path of what's it going to feel like if they miss out on the perfect house because they just didn't take time to get their documents together.
Right. And so what I've been doing, which actually worked with one person out of the handful, is I would give them a hyperlink to the MLS of properties that are within their what they're looking for. But I can't know what their price range is, so I have to ballpark it. But at least that kind of plants a seed, and it's like, oh, they start maybe visualizing and imagining themselves in that property, and maybe that gives them an incentive to do this homework of getting all these documents.
Well, and that can help,
Yeah.
but here's the danger of that.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
If you're guessing what their price range is, what happens if it's 100,000 less?
Yeah.
Now you're getting them used to looking at homes that are $100,000 more than what they can afford.
Right, they get disillusioned.
Yes, and then they may not become buyers at all, right? So
Right.
I would really encourage the reaching out to the lender. Now they can do this twofold. You can give them the link so they can fill out the application and let them know, as long as everything, we can get you a pre-qualification. Put all the correct information in the application. We can get you pre-qualified. It's not the same as a pre-approval. To get a pre-approval letter, we need you to supply the lender the documents for proof. That is our best way to get an offer accepted for you, because we are in a market where there are multiple offers on properties. And so here's the thing, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, it's not even worth yours or my time for us to go look at a house until you do this process.
I see. Yeah.
So, and then here's the other thing, put them in the seller's shoes. All right, Manuel, you know, I understand that it's difficult and time consuming, but let me ask you, what if you were selling your home and you had to pack up your kids and your dog and clean everything because somebody wanted to come in and see it? And then you found out after going through all of that they couldn't write an offer even though they loved the house because they got pre-qualified after the fact and found out they couldn't afford your house. How would you feel having to go through all of that with your kids and your animals and cleaning?
Oh, it would just be like a waste of time and energy.
Yeah, that would be pretty frustrating to have to go
It
through,
would be.
right?
Yes,
So
it would.
essentially, that's what we're doing if we to sellers if we don't go through the proper channels and do this first. So really put people in the other person's shoes. Help that, because that helps reason with them, right? Because they don't understand, well, they're selling their house. Why can't I go see it? Well, because it's not as simple as that, right?
Right.
Sebastian?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that as well. I'm not sure how it is in other counties or if it's required here in Tulare County, but I do see on the MLS that it also says that they require a pre-approval with the showing. So they want you to send them a pre-approval letter before you go and give them a showing as well. So that could be something that you could explain to the buyers as well. Like, this is part of us going to that showing. You need to get that pre-approval before we get to it, because that's something that the sellers require.
Yeah, that's a really
Well,
good
that's
point,
good.
Sebastian. Where not every MLS listing is going to say that. Some of them do. So use the sum to use that reasoning. That's very good. Ross?
I actually have a similar thing going on right now with a buyer who turned in enough that the lender could tell them the amount, but didn't finish the paperwork. So I showed her a handful of houses, and then we stopped, and I just said, you need to finish this, because what if you really loved one of these, and instead of us doing an offer, you're spending 2 or 3 days trying to find the rest of your paperwork, and then we just don't even have a shot at it. So I said that would be a lot of hard work and effort and heartache for nothing. So, you know, there are that I kind of use that method. She's working on it, but I wouldn't say it's fast.
Yeah.
It is daunting, and especially if you can't find it, you have to get a hold of somebody to get something sent to you. But you can't, you're not going to get an offer accepted without it.
Yeah. That's the bottom line, right? And being good with that, it's like we set expectations, right? When we work with our clients. Part of that expectation is that they are to be pre-approved before you start looking at property. And that should just be the way we do business. It shouldn't even be presented as there's any other option. That's just that's just how we do it. That's the process. Because think about it. If you have an ache or a pain and you go in and you tell the doctor, I want to have surgery to remove this pain, is he just going to take your word, put you on the table and do surgery? No, there's a process, right? He's got to do a checkup. He's got to run some tests. He's got to figure out what's actually wrong with you. Do you need the surgery or not? There's a process for everything. And so we're professionals, just like a physician, like anyone else. So we've got to do the process and set the expectations as such. Here's what I know to be true. Most of us as agents We want to skirt the process because we want to hurry up and get them into contract, right? But when we do that, we end up losing more business than we get. So we've got to stop skirting the process and do it right. And set the expectation that you're not even going to show property unless they're pre-approved. Because otherwise you're wasting your time, their time, the seller's time, the agent's time, the seller's agent who's getting excited because they got a showing coming up, and then they find out, oh, what do you mean you didn't have your client pre-approved? How would you feel as the selling agent? So think about that. And here's the thing, guys, don't overthink it. Present it. This is just how we do things. This is the process.
And you know, I can tell you from a listing agent point of view, I had on a listing where somebody came, they looked at the house, they loved it, and then their agent called me and said, you know, we're interested in the offer, but we haven't even put their property on the market yet. And I called the timeout and I said, you really can't expect the sellers to wait until you decide to put that house on the market, sell that house, then hold it when there's other people looking at it every day, basically.
Yeah.
That's the same with the pre-approval. If you don't have it, it's kind of the same concept of maybe something will happen someday.
Definitely. Okay. Any other thoughts around that?
Just a quick question. Like some of the clients, they want to sell their existing house and buy a new house, but they want to start looking at the new houses before they sell their old house. And the money they're going to be using is from the old house to get the new house. How does that work?
So great question, and very similar, right? So here we have two things that need to happen before we start looking at property. One, they need to get pre-approved with the lender because now they're also going to be a buyer, right? So unless they're paying cash from all the proceeds, then you can omit this. But if they're getting a loan, they still need to be pre-approved. So what proceeds do they need from the sale of their house to be able to make that move? And then what will they qualify for in purchasing power to be able to do that? So that has to be figured out. Okay, now that is okay to do before a seller puts their house on the market because they want that information. However, to start looking at homes, A, before that's done, and B, before their home is even on the market, is not a good idea for the same reason it's not a good idea for a non-pre-approved buyer to go. Because we are in a market of multiple offers. So the only chance they really have at getting an offer accepted is if their house is already listed. That's going to increase their chances, but better yet, if it's already in escrow. Okay. Now, here's the other thing. Your seller may say, okay, that's fine and good. I understand that. But what if I'm homeless? What if I have to sell my house and I haven't found a home yet? Right? No problem. We assure them we're not going to allow them to be homeless. We're going to write it into the contract that the sale of their listing is contingent upon them finding a replacement home. So we're not going to allow them to be homeless, but they have to start the process and do it correctly if they want an offer to get accepted. Make sense? Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, Sebastian?
I also wanted to add to that. I always hear Troy saying that it's best to start looking at homes when the seller's property is already 2 weeks in the escrow or 2 weeks from closing of escrow, actually. Like you said, putting a replacement property contingency on the home when they sell it and when they make an offer, putting the COP in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I just want to add that he recommends like around 2 weeks of like when escrow is going to close to start going ahead and looking at properties.
Yeah. You can also, if something is really, if the seller needs the proceeds and they need it to close, you can even do things like seller in possession, things like that, where they do a rent back for a few days. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to protect the seller, to be able to still sell their home and purchase a new one and be able to go from one house to the next. Thank you. Okay, any other questions, thoughts, comments on that? Okay, let's address Sebastian's open houses. So first of all, let me ask you guys, those of you that do open houses to a high level and have good success with visitors and leads, turning them into leads, what is it that you do? What is your best practice?
Well, I can share what I do.
Okay.
Okay. So I do door knock the entire neighborhood around it, invite all the neighbors. I also use social media quite a bit. And I have in my database, I have quite a few local realtors that I have met at open houses that I do an email blast to them so they know I'm having an open house, and they actually do the same back to me, because now that I do it to them, I see emails when they're having open houses. So I just like to create a lot of activity around it, and that way it seems to do pretty well. And also the price point has a lot to do with it. You know, if you're only getting 1 or 2 people and someone else is getting 30 or 40, the house may have been on the market for a long time, or maybe the price is a little too high. And one of the things I do when I target open houses, I look for recently listed, but I also look for houses that they just dropped the price on. A couple of the most successful ones I had where the price was just dropped, and then people come around because it all of a sudden is more reasonable. People want to check it out and see what's going on.
Love that. Absolutely love that. You notice all the things he's doing before the open house.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ross. One thing I really like that you said that I haven't been doing is email blasting other agents. So I think I'm gonna start doing that. And sometimes I'm not able to door knock around the home because I live pretty far from where I do the open house. And where I live is like there's not really that much real estate going on because it's a small town. So I do circle call around the house, but I think that blasting agents with emails would also be good as well. And like you said, finding a better price point, because some of the open houses that I've been doing, I do know that they're a little bit too high, but I'm like, you know what, let me go ahead and do it anyway and see who comes by. But picking a better price point would also be very helpful.
Location is also helpful.
Yes.
So if you pick a house that's in a maze to get to versus near a busy street, and being able to use fewer signs, that is very helpful too, to have traffic come to your open house.
You know, kind of what I also did, and it really educated me, is without looking in the MLS, I went to an area where I saw some signs and I started following them. And some agents' signs go nowhere. I mean, I don't know what happens. There's been times where I never found the house, and others are like close to a main street and it just leads you right to it. So if you make it easier for people to get there, and especially since you're doing it to try to get your name out there and get buyers, try to get them as close to the main street as possible.
Most definitely. And when you put signs up, do it backwards. Start at the house, but don't put the one in front of the house till you're done. But go from the house to the corner that makes sense, put one there, to the next corner that makes sense, put one there. So put them up backwards. That does 2 things. One, it ensures that you're actually giving good directions with your signs. And 2, by the time you put the farthest one out, people haven't had time to drive in and beat you back. And so then you go back and put the one outside and then start your open house. So that's also very helpful.
And I'll just back Jodi up on that. My first one, I did it wrong, and there were people following me back to the house, and it worked out okay, but it was not professional.
I put a note on the door that says "Be right back," out putting out signs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's smart.
I was reading something that if you're doing farming, And the purpose of the open house is bring the people that you are farming the block or the area is instead, yeah, usually we put open houses, signs from the main road to the house to invite everybody that is out of the neighborhood. But what about the neighborhood? It's say also that you have to have at least 10, 12 open house signs, and inside the neighborhood, bring every corner, every block to the house. That way, everybody that is on that neighborhood know that you have an open house that day. That was
That's a lot of
interesting.
signs.
You need to
That-
have a lot of signs.
Well, keep in mind, so there are some schools of thought on that, and I appreciate you sharing that. There are some schools of thought, using 15, 20 signs, and the more signs, the better. But keep in mind, a lot of people live in neighborhoods or areas where that is not allowed. Okay, because there are homeowners associations, there are neighborhoods where even certain colors and manual in your area, that's in particular of importance because there's one homeowners association where the signs can only be green. There's another one where they can
Oh,
only
boy.
be red. So be really careful to know the area. And Sebastian and Demas, in your areas, there's not as many restrictions. But I want to make sure and bring that to everybody's attention. There are areas with some major restrictions. So
Yeah,
know your area.
Yes, yes. Know the laws for the city, because for example, Burbank, where I've done open houses, you have to, unless you have the signs only on the private property, you have to have insurance and pay the city per sign. So some cities, I don't know how well they monitor it, but I don't really want to find out.
Yeah, and then if you call and find out and they tell you, they're going to be out looking for your signs. So
That's kind of why I like my generic ones. If anybody wants to complain about where I put it, they're gonna actually have to come find me personally. But there's no phone number.
yeah. But all really good information, right? So, but remember too, whether you have 2 people come in or 20 people come in or however many people come in, make the most of the opportunities that you have. Build that rapport, greet them, have them sign in, collect their contact information, right? And then follow up with them after. Because the biggest mistake agents make is not following up after, letting everything get in the way. And before you know it, days or weeks have gone by and not a phone call or a follow up has been made. And then, if that's the case, why'd you do the open house? You essentially wasted your time, right? And we don't want to waste anybody's time. So follow up, follow up, follow up. Does that help you, Sebastian?
Yes, very much. Yeah. Thank you.
So let me ask you before we get off this subject. So circle calling, door knocking around the open house, the whole neighborhood. Why is that important? And I can think of 2 key reasons why that is very important.
The neighbors might know someone who wants to move into the area.
That's one very key reason. And that's even in a lot of our conversations, right? It's often neighbors in the area who know someone that wants to move in. So to really get a lead, to get to that open house, a solid lead, the neighbors know. So it's so important. But what's the other very important reason?
I don't know if this is what you're thinking, but what I'm thinking is if the neighbors see how hard I'm working on that open house and they come in and start talking to me, I might have a shot at their listing and sitting down with them and talking about selling their house.
That's exactly
They
it.
look to see how hard you work. If you just show up, open the door, put your sign out, that's not the same impression if you were standing on their porch 2 days or the day before, and then they saw it also on social media. So
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That is exactly it.
Recording in progress.
All right. What other struggles have you guys had that we can help you with today?
Well, mine's the same. It's just the balance of pestering a potential listing too much or not enough, because it's, retirement issues. So how often to reach out so it doesn't look like I'm driving them crazy, but not so seldom that some other agent kind of slips in the door.
So you mean the balance of how often you should follow up, not pestering, right?
Well, there's
Not
the
pestering.
point they look at it as pestering. If you like, when they're like, "Hey, Ross, I told you I would call you,"
Yeah.
so it's kind of a balance of how much as opposed to not enough.
Yeah. So was it you and I that talked about this in our group coaching?
Yeah, I think so. It's the same, just proper balance. I'm
Yeah.
working on that with the couple that can't make someone retire before they want to.
Well, of course. But something like that would be, for the good of the group here to this point. So depending on what the length of time is, right? So maybe it's a year out, maybe it's 6 months out, maybe it's 2 months out. Whatever they're leading you to believe that length of time is, right? So if it's a year out, maybe you're checking in monthly. So just say, hey, Ross, this is Jodi, just making my monthly check-in to see how you're doing and see if you're still on track, right? If it's a couple months out, maybe it's, hey, I'm just making my bi-weekly call here, or bi-monthly call. I actually, Emily, to the point earlier, I looked the definition up of bi-weekly and bi-monthly, and it can mean either. It can mean either twice a month or every other month, or twice a week or every other week. So that's not confusing at all. But anyway, the point is, right? If you're calling up on a regular rhythm, just, hey, this is Jodi making my weekly check-in to see how you're doing, if everything's on track. Did any questions happen to come up? So if you make light of it, like, hey, just expect me to call next week because I'm making my weekly check-in, then it won't feel like you're bugging them. Then you're setting the expectation that you're going to call them, and then be sure and call them, right? Because if you start saying that and you don't, then they're going to think, hey, I thought they were going to call me and they didn't.
And I did use your lyrics there about just checking to see if you have any questions.
Nice.
And that changed the conversation a little bit. Like, no, I'm just still deciding when. So it's not like if, it's more like when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and something like that, the next follow-up could be, hey, I know last time we talked, you were still deciding when. I just want you to know I am here. So I'm not trying to bug you, but every couple of weeks, I'm just going to check in and see just how you're doing and see if you have any questions that I can help you with.
Thank you.
That way you're preparing them to be tested.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Anthony. Did you have a question for us? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he wasn't talking to us. I hear background chatter. Okay. All right, guys. So I did get some of your trackers back with the how many appointments and things that you've done. Don't forget, you need to have an appointment every week. And if you don't have a bona fide real estate appointment, it needs to be a practice appointment. Okay. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll be when the real ones come along. And the more you focus on appointments, regardless if they're practice or real, more will come, because remember, what we focus on expands. Okay. So make sure everybody is doing one appointment this week. And then by now you should know what your choices are. So please put in the chat before we go, what are you going to do for your challenge besides your one appointment this week? And that's either 2 open houses, 100 door knocks, 100 circle calls, or what was the fourth one? It was 50 something. Oh, ask for 50 referrals. Thank you, Janae. All right. Ross is doing 100. All right. We're getting them in here. 2 open houses, 100 door knocks, 100 circle calls. Nice.
Ross, can I ask you a question about your door knocking the neighborhood before open house?
Sure.
What do you find is best as far as that, like a day ahead, or do you do that like a couple hours before it? Have you found has been
Usually the
working
day
best?
before. I
Day before.
usually do it the day before, but there's been a couple areas where there was just very suburban and a lot of houses. So I did
Yeah.
it both 2 days before, like a full day, like 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
Before. I've tried it before the open house to do a little bit, but it feels like time gets away from you and you don't get enough done, and then you rush into to set up the open house. So I like on the open house day just to deal with the open house.
And how much time are you spending doing that when you do that the day before? Like 2 hours or what's
Well, I
the
usually target a number of doors. So
Yeah.
for the open house, depending, like I don't want to go too far away, but it depends on the community. Some areas of houses are close together. So I kind of gauge the area, but I like to hit about 80 doors, like 40 each day. Because obviously I'm doing other stuff during the day too. So I like to do
Yeah.
40. So that, and most of those are conversations. So that can take a
Right.
while. When you knock,
Exactly.
it's surprising, you think when you knock on the door on a weekday that people don't answer. Every time I'm out, if I do say 35 doors, at least 15 people answer the door. So there's a lot of people working from home that just put their computer on mute and come talk to me. So you have to be prepared to have conversations. And
That's a
especially
quality problem.
door knocking, some people are like, thank you, nice to meet you, and then they shut the door. But if you're doing it for an open house, they usually engage in a lot more conversation about the house and the neighborhood.
And
So-
I always make a half sheet flyer to leave at the houses that
Yeah, I have that too, yeah.
nobody answers.
I was gonna ask that, yeah.
Yeah, I do the open house flyer, the one that says you're invited. It's in command, and I've had people come to the open house and bring it with them. So I know it works.
And I shrink mine down so I don't have to make as many copies. I put them on each a half, so I'm only handing them a half sheet instead of a full sheet.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Now, I have a quick question. If they don't answer the door, do you still leave like a door hanger or you just move on?
I leave something.
Okay.
But like I learned the hard way last summer, a year ago, because I got advice about only hand it out if someone answers.
Okay.
And, so I was doing that, and then I saw, and it doesn't mean anything other than my personal feelings about it. I saw a sign at a house like 3 weeks later that I did not leave one, and I thought I never gave myself a chance at that. Doesn't mean they already weren't talking to somebody, but I just thought I didn't give myself a chance. So I thought I'm not following that advice.
Thank you.
I had that same thing happen, and this property just went up this week.
Yeah. So
Couple doors down from
myself a chance. That's it doesn't mean they didn't already have somebody, but what if they didn't? And I just was following advice I would not give myself.
The only ones I don't leave it on are the ones that say no soliciting, that have a no soliciting sign.
Yeah. When I did business to business, I didn't pay attention to those, but when it's on a house, it's private property, it's their deal. So I respect that and try to get to them through a mailer or email or something.
Yeah, I would argue that an open house invitation is not a solicitation.
I just don't want anybody mad at me with my
Yeah,
name,
that's a
with my
personal
name
choice.
and phone number, so they can let me know just how mad they are.
Yeah, no, and that's a personal choice.
And everybody has those signs out for different reasons. I think some do it to keep the solar reps away. Because like in my neighborhood, they're like every other day, it feels like they're coming around. So, and I even heard 2 people when I knocked on the door yesterday, their window was open so I could hear them. And the wife said, oh, it's probably another solar rep. So when they answered the door, it's like they were actually happy it was somebody different. So,
That's relatable.
Yeah,
because I have talked to people that had no soliciting, but they've been out front or something, and then I see them and I talk to them, and they never said, "Look at my sign." But still, I don't want to leave my flyer on their porch.
All right, everybody. Great conversation today. So have a great week this week. Go get those appointments and then come back next week. I really want to know how your appointments are going. So whether they're real or practice, I want us next week to mastermind on how they're going, how you're feeling about them, how we can improve. Okay. All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jodi.
Bye-bye.
Bye.